Hi everyone, I'm Sarthak from Energy Tech Meetup and welcome to ETM Talks. Today we have a very special guest, Dr. Matsuoka from RIKEN. He's the director of RIKEN for computational science, and he's known as the leader of supercomputer Fugaku, which is the fastest as well as the greenest computer in the world. Dr. Matsuoka, thank you for joining us. May I just say how fascinating your work is, and we also really enjoyed your talk at Dine and Discuss with ETMs, and it was very fascinating how you highlighted the greenness of supercomputer and how sustainability is very important in computers. So, could you briefly tell us about RIKEN and your role at RIKEN?
RIKEN itself for our center at RIKEN, which, I mean, RIKEN is a very big lab. I can do both if you want.
Okay, yeah, sure. I mean, just like a brief description for the audience would be fine. And your
Okay,
role.
so yeah, so RIKEN is the premier national science research lab in Japan. You know, it's government funded mostly, and it's just like in the I guess the European equivalent will be like Max Planck, or maybe you know, the U.S. equivalent, maybe something like you know, DOE national labs, for example. So we do a lot of research in science. Probably the biggest segment is biology of some sort. Yeah, lots of centers on various sorts of medical and medicine and biology. But also we do you know, a lot of things in material science. We do a lot of things in particle physics. We do a lot of things now in information, computational science, applied math, and so forth. And we have thousands of people, and you know, we're the top-ranked research lab. Our reference, if you look at our data, we are the best, you know, scientific institute, surpassing University of Tokyo in Japan.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's fascinating.
Well, if you look at like how many reference, you know, all the data, RIKEN is the #1, the top institute in Japan.
Okay.
Now, yeah, and it's
Yeah.
very famous worldwide. And we have 12 centers. We have lots of researchers, but many of them are grouped into 12 research centers we have. One of which is my center, which is Center for Computational Science. And we do basically science on computing of some sort, especially high performance computing. And we do, and I'm the director there, so I direct the research. And also our secondary role is to be the R&D center and hosting center for our flagship national supercomputer. Previously was a K computer, now it's Fugaku, which is now which we co-developed with Fujitsu. And now it's the biggest and fastest supercomputer in the world.
Wow.
Machine you see in the background. In fact, it's faster compared to the second fastest machine by factor 3 to factor 5. So you know, it's not like we're better by 10%. You know, we're better 3 times or 5 times better than any other supercomputer. Those in the US, those in China, and those in Europe. So, but this machine was developed ground up in 10 years. You know, 10 years R&D, and again, this is a collaboration between. You know, our center was the main focus. You know, we had a development team within our center, but also we collaborate with, you know, companies like Fujitsu, and also we collaborate with basically all the, you know, high-performance computing community in Japan. So, but again, we are the flagship both research and development center for these types of very large-scale computing, and we do lots of studies in that area.
Wow, that's very interesting, and like just it's fascinating how you guys are like leading the world's fastest supercomputer. So in terms of like supercomputers, like if you can explain, well, especially for our non-technical audience, what are supercomputers and how are they like different from normal commercial computers?
Well, there are similarities and differences, right? Okay, so similarities are that, especially machine like Fugaku and many of the supercomputers today, not necessarily all of them. Some have very special purpose, no commodity type of programs to run on the machine. But we deliberately designed the machine to run the same software as it would on your laptop or your cell phone. So the commonality is that, despite this immense size and performance, basically runs the same program. It runs the same code, it runs the same operating system, essentially. It can run Word, it can run PowerPoint, it can run, probably can run games, although we haven't ran any games on this machine. It can run your favorite game on this machine. So, so similarities are software, and that's very important because there are lots of programmers who can program standard machines, right? And there are lots of programs out there, and it's very important, even for supercomputers, as a pinnacle of IT, be able to utilize, be at the top of the ecosystem, not separate from any others, but not as a separate ecosystem, but at the top of the ecosystem, and that mandates that we can run stuff that runs on cell phone. Okay, so that's a commonality. Of course, the difference is it's way faster and way bigger. So compared to so I said it runs the same code as your cell phone, but so your cell phone has a CPU inside, okay, and this machine has a whole bunch of CPUs inside. So the cell phone has one chip, which probably has typically 4 CPU cores, what I call CPU cores, independent CPUs inside the chip. Okay, so that's your cell phone. Now Fugaku, has each of the chip in Fugaku has about 50 to 52 CPU cores. So you have more than 10 times more cores per chip than your cell phone. And then each core is a lot faster than the cores on your cell phone by several factors. So, when you compare chip to chip, chip in your cell phone, CPU chip in your cell phone, versus a CPU chip in Fugaku, chip to chip comparison, this is about 50 to 100 times faster already there. Okay, and then we connect all these chips using extremely fast network. It's so fast. It's thousands, compared to, again, your network on your, let's say, your laptop, it's at least it's nearly, it's about 400 to 1,000 times faster than your network on your laptop. And compared to your wireless, it's a lot faster, 10,000 times faster than your wireless network. So, all the chips are connected, but but there are about 160,000 chips in this machine. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
if you can, so if you can do the math, okay, there are 160,000 times, 160,000 chips in this, and each one is about 100 times, let's say 100 times faster than your cell phone. That means this machine is nearly 20 million times faster than your cell phone.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. So it's interesting how this computing world especially is constantly innovating, and especially other than supercomputers, I've read about how Google is developing quantum computers. So I don't know if a little bit, can you please explain a brief difference between quantum and supercomputers, and whether they have the ability to transform our energy infrastructure in the world?
Well, both are very important. Traditional supercomputers are very general purpose, right? And you can make it, like I said, 20 million times faster than your cell phone. And cell phone's pretty fast, by the way, compared to faster than your PC 5 years ago. So so your cell phone is pretty capable. Now, a quantum computer is something else. So the good thing about quantum computers is, for problems it's good at. And if we can ever build a quantum computer that's large enough, and depends on your definition, on your problem, what large enough means. And for most problems, we don't have quantum computers that are large. In fact, for most problems, the quantum computers are still minuscule compared to what you really need, right? Because it's very, very early stages of development. But the hope is, in the future, we have the technology to develop large enough quantum computer, so it'll be faster than supercomputers like this. However, having said that, quantum computers are only good if your problem can be subject to what's called a quantum speedup. Okay, so that means your quantum computers can exhibit fundamental supremacy if it's large enough. Okay, if it's small, it's not going to matter. Okay, if you have a quantum computer that's very, very large, if we can ever build one, by the way, which is very difficult, but if we can ever build one, then maybe it can supersede, for some problems, it can supersede traditional computers like this. Unfortunately, the problems that quantum computers can exhibit quantum supremacy are very small. And this is fundamental, okay? So, so what happens is, for many problems, okay, quantum computers are not useful. For many realistic problems, okay, they're not useful. For some problems, they're very useful, okay? And in reality, so what you really want to do is to use both, okay? Because even if you take a single problem, certain parts of a problem, let's say computational chemistry, okay, like building new materials or energy, okay, like energy storage, right, and building new batteries. Some parts of the problems, quantum computers in the future may be very good at. Mm-hmm. Some parts of the problem, quantum computers are useless. So you want to run this on a traditional supercomputer. So you want to combine these two and take the best of both worlds in order to discover new battery materials, let's say. Okay. So that's and moreover, when we build computers like this, we just don't build them out of scratch, right? We don't can't go to a shop and just buy stuff, or we can't just hammer things down, get draw a blueprint like the old days and figure it out. We need to build computers like this. We need a supercomputer to simulate, okay, the new ones. And this is no exceptions for quantum computers as well. So building both advanced computers like this, also building advanced quantum computers, you need very large supercomputers. Okay, so in order to build quantum computers in the first place, you need very big machines like this. Okay.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, but of course, we have high hopes in the future. That especially in the area of, I think where quantum computer, so these traditional supercomputers are good at everything. So with respect to energy, it can do lots of stuff, everything from generation, like turbines, to things like nuclear fusion, to things like wind, things like new materials, solar batteries, and so forth. So there's a lot of work in the area. There's a lot of work on simulating the transport, new types of organizing electrical grid, new types of power converters, power converter semiconductors, stuff like that, and of course storage, new battery materials, especially solid state batteries, or things like supercapacitor, new generation supercapacitors. All those energy supercomputers today, including this one, is very hard at work in developing next generation technology. And also self-serving, because we also want to build power efficient computers, both in terms of cooling and the computer itself. And we use supercomputers to simulate, let's say, airflow in a data center, cooling, and also to build efficient machines in the first place, right? To build energy efficient IT infrastructures. Now, quantum computers can probably help in the area of materials. So things like batteries, or solar cells and so forth. There may be, and also things to save energy, like developing new types of fertilizers, new ways of creating fertilizers. You know how we recently learned in a very sad way how much energy is contained in a fertilizer. There was a very unfortunate explosion, in the Middle East, and fertilizers fundamentally are very, very expensive energy-wise to build, to create, and that's exhibited in the massive explosion. Mm-hmm. So if you can come up with energy-efficient ways of creating a fertilizer, then it will save a lot of world energy, as much as a data center. The fertilizer, making fertilizer uses as much energy as all the data centers combined in the world.
Yeah.
So
wow.
There, for example, Microsoft is working on quantum computer algorithms that may allow us to build these, to create these a new process for making fertilizers. But of course, it's still very early work. But there is some hope. So again, both supercomputers and quantum computers in the future will collectively help to solve a lot of the energy problems in the world.
Wow, that sounds fascinating, and especially like the work that your team is doing. It's very hopeful that future is quite near for us, hopefully. But yeah, my next, you have a very fascinating career, right? And it's very inspiring to so many students, people, especially students. Like, what advice would you give to students who would want to explore kind of careers in supercomputing?
Well, it's hard to say how I got into this. Okay, because I didn't, yes, I was I loved computing since I was 14. When I was first exposed to computers, and then I was, that was my main hobby. And then when I entered University of Tokyo, I decided to move on to information science, computer science department later on, because you get to pick and choose. By the way, at University of Tokyo, you pick your major in the second year of your second year of university or sophomore year in the U.S. So I picked that, which was very selective, but I made it. And then I thought I'd become a company engineer after getting a master's degree. But I thought, well, maybe I should go to PhD. Might as well. And, I'm not short on money. I've been making games. I made a lot of money making games, computer games. So I'm not there for immediate money making. So maybe I should move on to PhD and see what it's like. And the rest is history. They hired me as a faculty, and then I encountered these very large parallel machines, and these parallel machines were fascinating because it was very different from machines I was used to, but it was a hell of a lot faster. And but the interest was how to make things even faster, but also easier to use. And so that became my research. And then I started building these machines because I thought I could build them better. And so and then the rest is history. Here I am today. Now, so that's the very short synopsis of my career. And but I guess to give advice, it's really important that you have you don't narrow yourself down to particular very tiny microscopic chasm. Although of course research, you need to focus on something, but you need to maintain your interest and see what and always question yourself, why is what's this good for, or can we do something different, or why was this done, why was it done this way? Okay, can we do, is there something out there that's that we can improve? That was exactly how it behaved. Like for example, they were building about 20, 30 years ago, they were building these machines out of customized CPUs. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then which were very special purpose, and as such they were expensive, and moreover there was it was very hard to create software for them. So and then, because I was a gaming programmer, okay, in my university days, and then, 10 years later, all these 3D gaming stuff started coming to fruition. But they all involve, if you know graphics, they all involve some sort of linear algebra, okay? Because, through like coordinate transformation, you need to basically do matrix multiply, okay? Because coordinate transformation is matrix multiply, and that you can do that in parallel. So then I was looking at these game graphic engines, yeah, and like the very early days, like Virtual Fighter, those kinds of. And of course, I was also learning graphics, computer graphics as my secondary major. So so I knew all the math there. Okay, so not just systems, but I knew all the computer graphics stuff. I was looking at, I was also interested in computer architecture, and this new graphics architecture kind of fascinated me. And then there was this called traditional supercomputer architecture. And I looked at all of them and said, wait a second, but these look very similar. Right, this traditional supercomputer and these graphics, right, and now it's being shrunken down into game consoles and also graphics cards on PCs. They look amazingly similar. Okay, so maybe we can use these, okay, and these are cheap chips. Maybe we can use this for supercomputing. If we can do that, it will be amazingly cheap. And of course, I gave the idea to one of the workshops. I gave the idea, present idea. Now it's all gaming. We have all these capabilities in the chips, and of course, this was a mostly American European audience, and these were supercomputing people like BOE and so forth, and they just laughed. And I said, gaming? I mean, gaming chip for like supercomputers? Oh, come on, that's total nonsense. That's unthinkable. It's like that's totally, these are toys. Right? No, we're serious, man. We're serious. We're building these machines that are millions of dollars, and this is $1,000 cost. I mean, it's a totally different world. So no, but these look amazingly similar, and in fact, some of the people who are designing these chips, they used to be former supercomputer engineers, and they moved on to companies like NVIDIA. And then they started designing these because they were breeding into a lot of technologies into the chips, but still people wouldn't listen. And I said, okay, now we should try it ourselves. So we tried it, and it worked very well. And now, of course, how NVIDIA is so much invested into supercomputing. Up until recently, until Fugaku beat them, they had the world's fastest supercomputer. They're AI powerhouse, and AI is all about supercomputing now, with very large machines. And they're building the fastest AI chip in the world, etc. So it's really important to not just think about one thing, but really have a very holistic view of the technologies and solutions and problem space out there, and try to mix and match. Hey, maybe this is useful. Maybe this traditional sensibility may be totally wrong. Maybe we can do something to think very different, just like Steve Jobs said. We can think totally different, and maybe we have something new. Okay? So that's sort of thinking you probably want to do. But in order to do that, you need to have very wide knowledge. You can't just focus on one thing. You need to have very wide knowledge of the industry, but as well as outside the industry, be able to make that kind of connections.
Oh, I see. So it's your message to the students is challenge your ideas and try to focus. Even though other people might find it ridiculous, you just need to challenge and try to get yourself into test it and see if it works.
Well, yeah, it has to be. Of course, it has to be technologically sensible. Yeah, I mean, you can't say I'm going to build a flying saucer UFO and go beyond speed of light. That's total nonsense. But but some people may, to me, something that seemed perfectly sensible to me, because all the engineering and science and everything would back it up. But people refute this connection because of more traditional I'll say preconceptions. So those are the areas you want to tackle, where people, because of these preconceptions, are not making these connections. But
Yeah.
from an engineering standpoint or a science standpoint, it makes total sense.
Mm.
Okay, that's where you want to challenge.
Wow, of course. Yeah, that's a very good advice. And I hope a lot of our student audiences that'll be seeing this video can get inspired, So thank you very much, Dr. Matsuoka, for your answers. That was very inspiring. And that's all the time we have for today. For our audience, remember to subscribe for more interesting energy contents. And um, if you enjoyed the video, please follow Energy Tech Meetup on Facebook and LinkedIn, and to get more info on our project. See you soon, everyone. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And hope you guys come up with new ideas that will shock the world.